It's 2 o'clock. We're going to start our Rules and Open Government Committee meeting for Wednesday, June 14th. The first item on the agenda is the review of the June 20th agenda. So let's start that. It's scheduled for 9 a.m. and 11. Did we? Oh, we set that last week. So it'll be 9 closed session, 11 open session with the ceremonials. We can discuss the time, I guess. Ceremonials at 1:30. Consent starts on page 6. We have many pages of consent, so I won't read all the page numbers. It goes.
Item 2.24, I think it was 2.24. We
sunshine.
need a sunshine. Yeah.
Yes, we need a sunshine waiver for item 2.24, and also for items 3.4A and B. Right. Okay. So we get through page 23 on consent. Brings us to strategic support. We have the final approval of the budgets, which items 3.3 and 3.4, which are going to be heard before consent. And I guess 3.4A and B need a sunshine waiver. And then 3.5 is respective director of housing. We have encroachment agreement for property. We have the water district, the water utility offices, section 6, code enforcement, section 7, CBO partners, 8.1, purchase of a property on St. John Street, Measure property tax refunds, 8.3, NOFA for home key program, 8.4. And then we have things that start moving. Actually, I think I missed the, no, I didn't yet. We have that successor agency hearing, right?
Yeah.
That's at the end of the agenda.
Chair, you have the.
Oh, it happens in threes.
And,
this is the meeting with everything out of order, so it's hard to keep track of.
And 6.1 would be part of the SJ Financing Authority.
Okay. So we have the San Jose Financing Authority that happens after 3.6. And then we were up to 8.5, which gets heard after 10.2. And then,
This couldn't be more.
then we have land use consent. And we have the RENA allocation. And one of those items was the housing element. I must have just misread it. 10.2 is the housing element? I think there's a separate item on housing element as well. Somewhere in the 8s. No.
8.5 is to be heard.
Oh,
with
8.5.
10.2, which is the housing element, yeah.
Oh, that's the housing element. That's right, 8.5, which gets heard after 10.2, which is the RENA allocation item.
Right.
Correct.
All right, so we have an ad sheet as well, and we have a couple of items that need sunshine waiver, so we'll go to public comment before we entertain a motion.
Paul Soto.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. 2 items. First of all, the consent calendar. These consent calendars are getting really, really thick. I mean, so much so that that Councilman Cohen chuckled at it, at the size of it, because it is a joke. It really is, and I mean that seriously. There is no process by which the public can challenge what is on that calendar at all. And I'm sorry, but there's no reason for the public to trust you. We have no reason to trust our government. So I don't trust you. So that means I don't trust who makes the decisions as to what goes on there and what doesn't, because we don't have a say in it. When you stack it with 33, what you're basically saying is, okay, now these issues, even if there's 5 of them, you got 2 minutes. That's not that is circumventing the democratic process. I'd like it to stop and for a process by which the public can challenge that as to what goes on there and what doesn't, so that we, the people, can challenge our government and keep it in check, because it needs to be put in check. Secondly, 8.5. 8.5, this housing element is designed to counter what has happened over decades because of redlining. That's what it's for. And this city keeps dragging its rear. I mean, it's like, well, we really don't care. We'll say we'll pay lip service to the fact that we're not racist, but we're not going to install any kind of housing element that is consistent with amending what has happened with that redlining map of 1930.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. I guess to put into a bit of a context of what Paul is trying to say is that, year after year, your city government always pads and stuffs the consent calendar time, budget ending time. And it's a really crazy time this month, and it's goofy and it's crazy and people grow weird. And so, I mean, it's cute in a way, but I mean, what Paul's saying is maybe we can take out a bit of the weirdness of this time by just keeping to a regular consent calendar agenda and just, 10 to 15 items. Thanks for the items today. I wanted to speak on item 2.21 of the long consent calendar about AOPRs. In the very, very least, you're actually talking about, in realistic terms, the future of ALPR use again in the city. If you go around to local city governments in the past few years around COVID, they came up with this weird plan to talk about ALPR use by police as we're not using any. We're using one, maybe two. I mean, I don't know what happened to everyone. Everyone went kind of nuts. You made kind of a inside agreement to say that police weren't using ALPRs anymore. That was just a crazy way to act and to work. I don't know why you guys were doing that, but at least with this item, you're trying to be very honest again in what a police department actually needs. And you guys got some really big numbers here of what you need for police ALPR use. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars, possibly tens of millions of dollars. So over, a 10-year period. So, hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars over a 10-year period. And that's a lot.
Call-in user 1.
Yeah, hi, Martha O'Connell. The solution to the length of the consent calendar is to send an email to a council person and ask them to pull the item. At the last meeting of the Housing Commission, there were 2 items that were put on that had never been put on consent, never. And I've been going to the meeting since 2004. I emailed most of the housing commissioners and told them this item needs to come off of consent, so that when the Housing Commission meeting started, there was a commissioner who said, I want these items discussed. And the discussion was of significant length and very robust. So that is one way that we can return the agenda to the people. Ask your council person to pull it off. And if your council person won't do it, in fact, I would recommend you send an email to all of them and say, this item is important. Would one of you have the moral courage to pull the item off of consent? Thank you.
Back to the committee.
All right, thank you. So we have an ad sheet that requires a sunshine waiver for the 2 items for Section 3. We need a sunshine waiver for 2.24 and for 3.4A and B. So I'll entertain a motion or a discussion about anything on the agenda.
Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask our city attorney's office, are we going to have a long, a very full closed session agenda?
Yes, Councilmember, it's going to be a pretty long agenda.
So the reason I'm asking is because we have a start time at 11. If we're going to go past 2 hours of closed session, then maybe we should change the start time for open session. That's kind of why I was asking.
Change the start time of open session to later.
If you think that's necessary.
Yeah.
Can I,
It's a fairly robust schedule for a closed session. They're all litigation items, and I'm on the departmental side of the house, but I think, if that works, otherwise, it might not be a bad idea.
Okay.
in the past, if it's gone so far that you can't start at 11, we've just announced to people we'll start at 1:30. So if you keep it 11, it gives you that flexibility to start at 11:30 or 12, or just wait until 1:30.
Okay. What do you think?
I'm thinking we should, given what we just heard, I think we should move our regular meeting to 1:30 to give us enough time to have the discussion in closed session.
Then we're not pressured, and then hopefully we
Right.
all get a break.
And then it gives us time to have the break. Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, it gives staff more certainty too.
right, right. And any public who may be here for like the housing element, for example, or other things, they won't be showing up for 2 hours before we actually get to the meeting.
Right.
Yeah, and the only thing, then the question, do we want to move closed session back to its normal start time of 9:30? So just do 9:30, 1:30 like usual?
I'm seeing nods from my colleagues, so
I'm
I'll
with
make that
that
part of
too.
I'll make that part of my motion.
All right.
So I will move approval of the agenda for Tuesday, June 20th, with closed session starting at 9:30, open session starting at 1:30, so back to our regularly scheduled times, and with the ad sheet and the approval of the sunshine waiver for the ad items.
And the regular items that also need it.
And
All right,
any
is-
regular items that also need sunshine waiver.
And I'll second that.
Great. So let's vote on that. All right, that motion carries 5-0. We don't have an agenda to review for June 27th, but we are holding June 27th because there's a possibility that there will be a need for that meeting. And we will discuss it next week if necessary. Now we're on to our consent calendar. There are 5 items on the Rules Committee consent calendar. Let's go to public comment.
Before that, I just want to announce that on item B2, the Rules Committee work plan, I have the committee members, I have them incorrectly listed. Pam Foley is the vice chair, so that'll be corrected. It's just an announcement of a correction of the document.
Okay.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, I wanted to comment on the public record and hopefully on the committee work plans for PP, for public safety and transportation. Public record, thanks for the Children Bill of Rights things. Really interesting, good list. There may be a couple weird, cute typos on there that can be cute that we may want to correct for just good practices if needed. But thanks a lot for placing it in the public record. And about my own letter, well, to speak to the work plan agenda items, there's an item in PISPIS that there was supposed to be a report tomorrow about current status of police practices and how they work as a police department. That report has been put off because the IPA is retiring, and I'm sad. I wish that it could be still presented in some way so we could at least make our own decisions. From that, about my own letters in public record, it's really loud right now. I'm sorry. Hold on. In public record, my own letters state the idea that I talk about ARPA funding again and Measure E stuff. About ARPA funding, thank you very much that we've worked on the Measure E things. It's now my hope that you had a public meeting about ARPA issues. I hope as a whole community process, we can work to better address ARPA issues and how to take it from its current police hold and police budgeting and put it into budgeting practices of, say, Health and Human Services practices in some way. I think it's a much better way to work. That I think we're creative enough to know how to work in those good ways. Let's try to really get there. Thanks.
Paul Soto.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I want to talk about the PISPIS report. As a citizen, I don't care if the IPA is retiring. That has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with my right to receive the city's response to police misconduct. Now that report that came out assessing the police department. Look, let me get something real clear. We need officers. I like our police department. What I don't like is racist cops. What I don't like is dirty cops. What I don't like is cops that fake and falsify reports. What I don't like is dirty cops that will beat someone knowing that nobody else is looking in the partner's not going to snitch them out. Those are the ones that I hate. I can't stand them. And you know what? Good cops can't stand dirty cops either. Why? Because they're the ones that give the badge a bad name. I'm tired of not being able to trust an officer. When an officer approaches, I want to be able to have confidence in him. I want to be able to have trust in him, that he's not dirty. And now there's lots of question marks, especially considering that 4 of them are just facing termination. That's unprecedented. That is unprecedented. For one thing, though, I'd like to thank Chief Mata for being able for having the ability to do that, because that wasn't done in the last administration. Garcia wasn't doing anything like that. So at least he is. So
Back to the committee.
All right, is there a motion on the consent calendar?
Second.
All right, let's vote. All right, motion carries 5-0. So now we're on to open forum.
Blair Beekman.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks again for working on the making the future of ALPRs more accountable again. Thank you. And a thank you to Martha O'Connell, who had really good public comment today that I hope we can learn to, again, pull consent calendar items if we call our council persons and ask them. That was the initial planning. I hope we want to, practice that kind of stuff. And that's exactly how we should be talking with such large consent calendar items this time. Thank you, Martha. And she offered a couple weeks ago that they didn't take her call for some reason. I hope, I had a nice conversation with Tony Tabor afterwards, and that I hope you guys, city clerk's office used to be good when you would email during a council meeting and make sure the email could get to someone during the meeting. And hopefully you can return to that good practice. Normally you used to be really good about it. Good luck in returning to those good steps for someone to be there to pass along things when it's live time. So thank you. And I wanted to comment also about Measure E issues yesterday. Very much of a thank you and all the efforts from everyone. I hope people can see it was the efforts to bring back a full community process, and it was really tried for. It's my concern that Mayor Mahan has some honest concerns about the future of house building and how much that's going to cost in the next few years. Those costs are going to rise. I hope we can address those things. And he thinks market rate housing is the way to help solve those sort of issues. Can we apply, middle income practices to lessen the future of house building increases? And that's my hope. You know my feelings on middle income housing, how it can help do that. I hope we can apply those good practices to middle income things and learn to lessen the cost of house building in our future. Along with that, good luck to ourselves. Thanks.
Call in user 1.
Yeah, hi, Martha O'Connell. On Monday, I saw a letter read into the record by a group of realtors about an invasion that took place of their office on June 7th. Always wanting best evidence and not believing what I hear, I contacted the Association of Realtors yesterday, and they sent me 2 videos, which I now have, and if anybody wants them, I'll be happy to share them with you, I was shocked and appalled. I saw for myself people walking in there, these nonprofits, including the Affordable Housing Network and working partnerships, and disrupting the office. One lady had a bullhorn. This is totally inappropriate. Arrests should have been made. If these people want to have a demonstration, they should get a permit and do it at a reasonable time and in a reasonable manner, pursuant to court cases, a Supreme Court case. I was really distressed by the comment from the leader of the Affordable Housing Network, who announced, you know what? This, meaning the office, makes a really good target for all of our housing issues in San Jose. Come right here. Every time you have a group, a rally that's mad about eviction, about people opposing rent control, this is the place to come. I'm going to be networking with some folks to try to get the council to take a principled stand. It shouldn't be about whether or not you agree with these groups, but they had no right to go into that office and disrupt its functioning. And had I been there, I also would have felt intimidated, especially by a woman holding a bullhorn. Thank you.
Paul Soto?
Yes, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. What I'd like to, man, so many things. There's historical preservation work. Historical preservation work, the definition that the city uses in order to allow for historical preservation needs to broaden. And the reason why is that historical preservation work has become very elitist, and it's an equity issue. The reason why it's an equity issue is that it only takes into account architecture. Okay, well, as Mexicans and Chicanos, we were deprived literally of the ability to acquire wealth. So we don't have these structures like you have downtown, all these buildings, stuff like that. So the definition that we use to talk about historical preservation work needs to broaden, and it needs to include the spaces and places where history was made, not the filigree or not the freaking, Queen Anne style. That's cool. I like that stuff, man. I dig architecture. But when we're talking about historical landmarks, historical preservation, I gave two primary examples as to why that's important. Sacred Heart Church and the building that produced the first issue of Lowrider, first headquarters. You see, these are, Sacred Heart is a gem, but the building is nondescript that hosted the Lowrider headquarters. But it was the history that was made in it that actually gave the building its character. So that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to work with the city in broadening that. The county is already amenable to it because the county knows that this is an equity issue, and that if we're gonna practice racial equity principles, historical preservation work has got to be one of the first places that we do that. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
All right, thank you. So we may be back here next week for our last meeting of the fiscal year. Otherwise, have a good summer. We're adjourned at 2:24 p.m.